Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we've got a special edition of a Perfumers portfolio video, and it's going to be on a perfumer that honestly doesn't get much love, although he has an amazing portfolio of scents going back 20 plus years. His name is Olivier Pescheux, and he's a French perfumer, and I've got a bunch of bottles, a couple decants, or a couple samples in my collection that we're going to go through to honor him and the work that he has done, obviously. But first, I want to give you guys an apology. A couple people made note of the fact that yesterday's fragrance on Acqua di Parma Colonia Sandalo was more an unboxing than talking about Acqua di Parma Colonia Sandalo. Part of it is because, honestly, there's not much to say about that scent. It does change a little bit, but it's mostly a little bit linear and it doesn't have all these amazing transitions. It does transition. It has one transition in it, but there's really not much else to say about it. And also partly because work has been absolutely brutal lately. So when I work at home, I have a lot more time to, be able to do this kind of thing on my lunch break or, talk about fragrances right after work ends. Whereas when I go to the office, I've got to drive home and all that stuff that comes with it. Change if I'm in better clothes or... So work has been brutal, and then on top of it, studying for the CFP has been an absolute time drain. And so yes, we're on taxes right now, and it's tough. It's not an easy test. So I'm balancing all this stuff, but I still care, and I want to continue to do these videos, even on days where I'm just beat from the office, instead of just saying I'm not going to do it today. I like to stick to the routine, but please bear with me, have patience with me if the videos aren't as detailed. A lot of times I'm just, shot from working all day or whatever it is. But I'm a very routine human being. And so if it's part of my routine, I like to continue it. It's almost like I don't feel complete if the routine isn't done. You know what I mean? And this talking with you guys about these fragrances has become a literal part of my routine. So I feel like I really have to continue doing this, mostly because I love it. It's something that I love doing so much. If I didn't, I would stop. If I didn't think you guys if I didn't think you guys got something useful out of this, I would stop. If I'm just up here blabbering for no reason. But I think these are important videos, especially as a frag head. From one frag head to a fellow community of frag heads, these are important videos to me. So let's do scent of the day. Because I did go to the office today, and, there are many of these old school masculine fragrances that I own. They're not just museum pieces, this is not just an Osmotech behind me where I can reference stuff. I wear these fragrances, and today, for the very first time, I got to wear a vintage discontinued fragrance from the house of Parfums Vial, and it's called Vial pour Homme. And as you can see, there's the box. If you follow my channel, you know that I did an unboxing of this probably a couple weeks back. This was actually purchased from one of my subscribers, Manly Scents. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Manly Scents. I appreciate you sharing your collection with me because this has been harder and harder to find. And I did wear this to work today, and it is absolutely stunning for my taste. This is an underlooked gem of a fragrance. If you like... Okay, so let me set the scene for you. Basically, 1980 is when Vial pour Homme came out. I have no clue who the perfumer is. But it's basically like this leathery, woody, spicy scent is how I would describe it. It does have lavender, but it's mixed with this amazing, herbal... spicy bit, if you will. And the spices are extremely dry and extremely well done. It almost smells like, if you've ever smelled Thierry Vassar's reinterpretation of Darby from 2005, which is also discontinued now. The original from 85 is discontinued, and his reinterpretation from 2005 is discontinued. But the way he used the spices specifically in that 2005 version of Guerlain Darby, mixed with the carnation, mixed with this leathery, mossy base, it will remind you a little bit of Darby. And maybe touches of Patou pour Homme and stuff like that, but it's in that ballpark, if you will. And I'll tell you what, I am so happy to have this. I love these kind of scents, you know, this heavy, spicy lavender. There's rosemary in here, so it's a little bit herbal. It's obviously real oak moss in the base and vetiver, and it's not sweet at all. It is manly, it's masculine, it's not sweet. It's completely different, you know. In the office, all you smell are Sauvage and Bleu de Chanel and the occasional Eros, you know. You don't smell stuff like this. This is completely out of left field. So when you wear something like this, I mean, you are just basically stamping your authority on everybody. I mean, there's no, unless someone else just happens to wear something like some of the other fragrances I mentioned, or, you know, vintage masculine perfumery, if they're into, like my old man still wears Paco Rabanne pour Homme and he's worn it my whole life, that kind of thing. You know, unless you come into contact with someone like that, no one's going to be able to compete with this, because this is so masculine and so different from what everyone else smells in the air. Everything they smell is that synthetic, cheap, blue ambroxan. They smell this and it's just like a punch in the face, you know. But it's not overwhelming. That's the thing. No one mentioned the fact that it's, you know, oh, you're wearing a fragrance from 1980, you smell like grandpa. No, nothing like that. But you can tell, you know, when you get in someone's scent bubble and they almost give you that quizzical look, like, you know, what in the world are you wearing? But I absolutely love these type of fragrances. This is a pure love for me. I'm so happy to have this. So thank you for sharing, Manly Scents. Thanks again. A real joy to have this in the collection. And even though it's hard to find, sometimes you can still find respectable deals where they're not just completely marked up. I think there is a bottle or two on eBay, but I think they're asking like double, you know, what I ended up getting this for. But there are bottles floating around if you're interested. So that was scent of the day. So let's do the portfolio for Olivier Pescheux. Now, Olivier Pescheux, I don't really have much of a blurb other than to say, there is actually a blurb that I can read for you. So it says, this is according to Parfumo. So it says, according to his statements, authenticity and self-image are two pillars on which Olivier Pescheux has built his diverse work in the field of fragrances. He is considered the cosmopolitan among perfumers. Born in France, he began his professional career in equal parts classical and consistent. He completed his training at the legendary ISI PCA, Institut Supérieur International du Parfum, in Versailles, which to this day, alongside the Givaudan Givaudan Academy in Grasse, is allowed to train the future elite in the field of fine fragrances. One of his first professional posts after graduation took him to Bangkok in 1990, where he worked for Payan Bertrand, the internationally successful family-owned group. 2 years later, he returned to Paris to work for the traditional house Annick Goutal. In 1993, Kao Corporation brought him to Japan before moving him in 1999 to Givaudan, one of the undisputed big players on the international perfume scene. His local mentor was none other than Jean Amique. Now, if you read The Ghost Perfumer, you know Jean Amique was Pierre Bourdon's boss at one of his early stops in the 80s. So Jean Amique has been around the block. Now considered a legend among 20th century perfumers. The creator of century-old fragrances such as YSL's Opium, Christian Dior Poison, and Cacharel's iconic Lulu, he finally introduced Olivier Pescheux to the luxury fragrance segment. He soon made a name for himself on the international perfume scene as his creations impressively stood out. In addition to collaborating with world-renowned designers, Olivier Pescheux did not shy away from the niche segment. For example, he designed fragrances Arboretum and Formentera for H&M. When asked about his favorites among natural fragrance essence, he names the classics Patchouli Rose and Ylang Ylang. Experts can prove how great Olivier Pescheux's future is. His open mind, willingness to experiment, high standards in the selection of raw materials and their processing, in addition to his fine nose, are the best prerequisites for this. So there you have it. There's a little interesting facts blurb on Olivier Pescheux. So we're going to start at the beginning and we're going to go in chronological order. So the very first fragrance in my collection is none other than Dior's Higher. Now, this is a fragrance that came out in 2001. And Dior's Higher doesn't get a lot of talk nowadays. I believe it's discontinued. I don't think Dior is making this anymore. If they are, it's no longer in this particular bottle. This is the old style bottle with the built-in sprayer. The new bottles, I think, are clear with the cap with just a normal sprayer on top. And what makes this fragrance unique is this came out in 2001, right at the end of the 90s. So you have to remember, the 90s were all about freshness and cleanliness and, you know, ozonic, clean, blue, oceanic notes. This doesn't necessarily have that, but look at the bottle. Look at the white on the Dior Higher. Look how clean the presentation is, almost like, you know, this modern presentation, if you will, right? With the built-in sprayer. This fragrance is like this fresh, citrusy, somewhat fruity scent. And the reason I say fruity is because this is an amazing fragrance to highlight the note of pear. All right, so unless you're going to spend big money on like a niche or an indie slumber house fragrance, there's very few fragrances that can highlight the note of pear as well as Higher, because Higher uses both pear and pear tree wood. So it uses both pear in the top and pear tree wood in the base, and it has this green basil, citrusy, fruity peach vibe in the opening. With spices, rosemary, and cypress. And I think that cypress is a totally underused note in masculine perfumery. The base is this kind of boring, generic, clean musk, but I can forgive the fragrance for that because it is unique. And especially nowadays, you know, it came out in 2001. And so this, I think this scent even won an award. I don't exactly remember, but it was a big deal. I mean, it's a Dior, right? But this fragrance, along with Dune Pour Homme, get overlooked, you know, in the Dior catalog for whatever reason. And Dune has this beautiful fig. I believe it's a fig note in Dune, and this has this beautiful pear note. But as far as fresh fragrances go, Dune and Higher are overlooked gems in Dior's catalog. But understand what you're getting into. I mean, if you're wanting an Arige Ladore with musk and real oud, you're not going to be happy with a Higher. Higher is for someone that's looking for a fresh, summery scent that is masculine. I think it's actually unisex. Obviously, it was marketed masculine, but it has that vintage masculine, clean vibe to it, if you will. But the use of pear in here is amazing, and I can't think of many fragrances that do it, but it does get a little bit boring in the dry down, but I still like it. So that's his first one from 2001, Dior's Higher. And you can find these bottles. I think I got this bottle for $40 a couple years ago or something. You know, they're floating around. Even though I think it's discontinued, they're still out there. Okay, next we're going to talk about a fragrance from the house of Lanvin, and it's called Arpège Pour Homme. Now, the regular Arpège came out in the 1920s. Excuse me. Let me get a sip of water so I don't cough in your ear again. It's Fiji time. Okay. So the original Arpège came out in the 1920s. And I secured a bottle of the vintage X-Ray, and it is absolutely mind-blowing juice. Arpège Pour Homme tried to take advantage of the name, and what ended up happening is this came out in 2005. And by the way, I forgot to mention, Higher was a collaboration with Olivier Guillotine. So Olivier Guillotine and Olivier Pescheux created Higher. And Arpège Pour Homme is just an Olivier Pescheux. He's the only one that's given credit for it. And so in 2005, a very important designer fragrance came out. If you know what I'm going to say, here it is. And here's the vintage version. This is one of my favorite designer fragrances of all time. It is Dior's Pour Homme. Dior Homme came out in 2005. And the original, the way you can tell it's an original is because, number one, it's a silver stem. They changed the stem to black after 3 or 4 years in production. And then the real old bottles, the 2005 and 2006 bottles, actually have Dior stamped on the stem itself. So that's how you can tell if you're interested in trying to hunt down an original bottle. And you can still find these. This is one of my favorite designers of all time. But this came out and just blew up. I mean, it changed the game instantly. And, you know, because it's this iris fragrance, and everyone thought iris for a masculine fragrance? Who would do that, right? And so houses started to kind of copy it. And look at this bottle from Lanvin. Look at the top. Look at the cap. Tell me that doesn't resemble Dior Homme's cap, right? And so they tried to kind of make it their own, but you can see they were copying what ended up turning into an icon. But this came out about 6 months after Dior Homme came out in the silver stem version. And this does some very similar things that Dior Homme does. It does have that iris. It does have that floral, that mixture of what they considered back then to be masculine notes. So there is this spiciness of nutmeg and sandalwood, patchouli, tonka, but it's the iris heavy notes that really will remind you of Dior Homme. But this uses more vanilla, is what I feel like in the base. So if you're okay with sweet fragrances, there is a bit of sweetness here, a bit of this designer genericness, I guess we'll call it, even though that's not a word. Designer generic feel to the perfume that feels even more designer than this. This feels like, you know, a living, breathing entity. I mean, it's just to me, this is a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite Irish fragrances. I know it's not as high quality as stuff like Latessa, and I'll do an early impression on that soon. I finally have myself a decant of Latessa, but just being able to wear it day to day, I absolutely love Dior Homme. And I got this bottle from Anouge at Enchante Perfumes, and, you know, I got a very good price because even though this is long discontinued, no one's out there buying this. No one's talking about this. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about this except for me. And that's just because I blind bought a bottle because I saw, oh, it's discontinued and it's supposed to be compared to Dior Homme. Sure, why not? And I like Olivier Pescheux as a perfumer, and he did a good job here. I think maybe there's a little more like jasmine, a little more neroli. So you do get a little bit of this peppery nutmeg, like white flower. It's not very noticeable, but if you really pay attention, you'll kind of feel that neroli, jasmine, some notes that you don't get in Dior Homme. But I still think this is a good designer fragrance, and for $50 or whatever it was I paid for this, I mean, this is a no-brainer for me. So Arpège pour Homme is from 2005, and unfortunately it is discontinued. Now we're going to do a decant, a sample that was sent to me, and I think it was Eddie that sent this to me, but I can't remember. But I got a bunch of samples from people recently, and this is one of them, and this is his biggest hit ever. Easily his biggest hit. It came out in 2008, and it's called Paco Rabanne 1 Million in the ridiculous gold brick bottle. Like, wear 1 million and you'll just be surrounded by $500,000 gold bricks. And the problem with this fragrance for me, here's the blurb. This flamboyant eau de toilette announces the return of truly masculine seduction. Its fresh and sparkling top note of blood mandarin and peppermint is coupled with a rugged base note of amber leather. Amber leather? Rugged? There's nothing rugged about this fragrance. Amber Ketal is the, I don't know what you would call it, the captive molecule that got used here. And it basically just smells like sweet soup to me. orangey, sweet soup. And I absolutely despise this fragrance. It's like a clubbing fragrance. Like when you want everyone in the room to smell you, you just spray 1 million. And this is a mixture or a collaboration. Olivier Pescheux, Michel Girard, and Christophe Renaud. So it was a trifecta creation. And I think this is probably Paco Rabanne's, best-selling fragrance for men. Or I don't know if that's still true or not, because they've released some other stuff. But I don't think anything is sold like this. This sold like hotcakes. They have all kind of flankers. I have a decant of 1 million Privé, which is probably, if you're gonna have to wear 1 million, the Privé version with the tobacco is probably the most grown up. And I will review this, or at least do an early impression, just so I can take half an hour and bash it, because I can't stand that juice. But yes, I mean, if you're a high schooler, there's absolutely nothing wrong with 1 million. I would probably say, man up, high schooler, and wear something like this, stand out. But, they're probably not going to listen to me. They'll probably like this. Just so sweet. When they say rugged, masculine, rugged, I get no ruggedness out of this. I get nothing but sweet, disgustingness. But I'll do a review of it. And then, in 2012, so a decade ago, he released a tobacco fragrance for Parfums de Marly, and it is Herod. Now, here's the thing about Herod. It is a tobacco fragrance, and I do love tobacco fragrances. I'm a sucker for tobacco fragrances. They're actually one of my favorite. The note of tobacco is one of my favorite notes to wear in the cold. I think it's masculine, distinguished. But the thing is most tobacco fragrances are sweet. And this falls into that camp. So there's this like osmanthus. There's a big dose of osmanthus here. So really what you get is this cinnamony, spicy winter scent, okay? That uses a captive molecule called pepperwood with tobacco and frankincense, labdanum, vanilla, sweet vanilla, with cypriol, cedarwood, vetiver, patchouli, and this musk. And even though it's sweet, I remember I wore this last winter, and I remember telling Eugene on a stream that this was my scent of the day, and he was shocked that I wear this. I reminded him, hey, I go everywhere. There's nowhere I won't go in the fragrance world, but he's thinking, since you like vintage stuff like this, just shocked that you can wear something like this. And these are completely different worlds, but I can still appreciate this for what it is. If this was a, bespoke scent for me, I could totally see this being a bespoke scent for me if they turned the sweetness all the way to zero, almost made it negative sweetness, because I do think there's a good fragrance lurking underneath, and my nose keeps trying to go to that tobacco, but it keeps almost getting blocked like a bouncer at a club by that sweet vanilla, that, synthetic sweet vanilla that they use in everything, which I'm sure in the winter and the cold smells great. I still like this fragrance. I like it. I don't love it. But I like my tobacco scents to be less sweet in a perfect world. But I do think this is a good fragrance, and it's probably one of the best from Parfums de Marly, which is not really saying much, but there you go. 2012, decade ago. Now, 2015, a flanker. So, we're going to go to a flanker of one of the most iconic masculine scents of all time. So, the flanker is called Azzaro Pour Homme Intense, okay? Now, this is a 100 ml bottle. Yes, 100 ml bottle. Here's the original, the vintage silver sticker version, which, if you're a fougere lover and you love anise, this is a must because, oh, it's so good. And I'll tell you, Azzaro is an intriguing house to me. This is what the new bottles of Azzaro Pour Homme would look like, by the way. They would just have this on the front. This is what the older bottles look like with the sticker. If you can find these, get it. It's much deeper. Even if you have to buy a splash, get the vintage with a sticker if you can find it. But if you can't find the vintage and you want kind of a modernized version of Azzaro Pour Homme, this really I'm taken with. I think this is a fantastic scent that got a little hype when it came out, and then it just kind of died down. You know, everyone just forgot about it, so to speak, because everyone goes for the newest thing, right? That's one of the issues with Fragcom, is it's like this race to talk about the newest thing. Who's going to drop their Amouage Royal Tobacco review as fast as possible? And I don't play that game. I'm always late to the party. But this is an interesting scent. And the thing about Azzaro is they do put out some shit scents. I mean, they just do. I mean, you know, some of the stuff they put out is just awful. But what's interesting about the House of Azzaro is every now and then you'll get something like this that you go, holy shit, this is $20? You know, yes, it is a little bit sweet, and you can see Olivier Pescheux, you know, using that cinnamon-y style that he used in Herod a little bit. There's this cinnamon, amber, and tonka bean, and Haitian vetiver, and this liqueur note. And the liqueur note kind of announces the fragrance. So for the first hour or two, you get this boozy, you know, sweet cinnamon, modern fragrance, if you will. And you're going to smell this and you're going to go, Ramsey is absolutely insane. This has nothing to do with Azzaro pour Homme. Absolutely nothing. And honestly, if you really want old school masculine Azzaro, there's nothing to do but just buy the vintage with the sticker on. You know, pay the premium, pay the scalpers, and get the one with the sticker on it. But if you're patient, in the dry down of this, it starts to bring out this beautiful old school Azzaro pour Homme dry down. I've smelled it before. I think that that sweet, spicy, synthetic top, and the fact that they did a flanker of an old fragrance and did it with liquor again, which was like kind of the, it was like a trend 5 years ago, up until now. Even they're still doing it now, of taking old fragrances like Azzaro pour Homme and doing a flanker with like liquor, with a liquor twist. And the liqueur note here is done very well. The only problem is there's this synthetic sweetness for the first hour that you're going to have to put up with. And it doesn't last forever either. I think it only lasts 5 or 6 hours on my skin, if that. Which for a intense version, it's not really intense. But for $20 or whatever I paid for this 100 ml, I mean, I think this is a great fragrance. I think it's a great buy. And I think it's worth a sniff if you're into these vintage masculines, you could say. No one talks about this anymore, but I think as far as the flankers go, I mean, this is probably as good as it's going to get, especially if you love the original. Yeah, I mean, I gotta wear this and talk about it more, because I think it's a worthy flanker. Okay, next. I believe, again, this is discontinued, but I'm not 100% sure. I know it's extremely hard to find, so if it's not discontinued, it might just not be sold in America. This is a 2016 release, and it's from the house of Davidoff, and it's called Amber Blend. One of my favorite amber fragrances that if you watch Robes 08, Mark from the Robes 08 channel, he loved this fragrance. And I completely agree with him. I think this is a very interesting, captivating amber scent. Amber can get very boring very quick, you know. And now I have a lot of amber scents. I have Amber Rousse from Parfums d'Empire. I've got decants of Maître Parfumé Gantier, Ambre Perso. I have, you know, Absolute Pour le Soir by MFK. All kind of different amber scents are now in my arsenal. And this one competes with many of the higher end ambers. I mean, my favorite amber is Ambre Sultan from Serge Lutens. That's the best amber I've ever got my nose on. But of course, there's Andy Towers. Andy Towers amber is pretty impressive. Stuff like Accord du Désert is an amazing extrait version of L'air du Désert Marocain. Amazing spicy amber. But what makes Amber Blend interesting to me is the fact that there's this spiciness, obviously, with the cinnamon, but it's mixed with this rum absolute note. So you get this liqueur amber vibe, which again, that was the trend 5 years ago. Everything was going liqueur vibe. There were a lot of liquor fragrances coming out. I think Killian's doing their liquor line, apple brandy on the rocks and all that shit that they did. Straight to heaven with the liquor note, the rum and all that stuff kind of set off a wave. And this came out in 2016. And this is a good designer fragrance. This is a almost verging on great designer fragrance, especially for 2016. No one talks about it. No one actually that I know picked up the, torch after Robes 08 talked about how great it was and ran with it. They just, his subscribers knew about it and that's that. But this definitely deserves more love. I really like this one. And there's another one called Leather Blend that I will be talking about. They have a few others like Agar Blend, but they suck. So I would focus on the Amber Blend and the Leather Blend if you could, if you wanted to buy a couple from these lines. But this line from Davidoff in the red bottle, I mean, if you haven't smelled anything from Davidoff other than Cool Water from the 80s, and you just think the brand is just shit, try Zeno, okay? Try the original Davidoff from 84, Davidoff, if you can find it. And try this Amber Blend and try Leather Blend. And if you can find these bottles right here, these 100 ml bottles for under $100, get it. It is an absolute steal for 100 ml for $100. If you're an amber lover, I would almost put this on the must sample list if you can find it. It's hard to find though. Like I said, I don't think they sell it in the United States, but yeah, this winter, this and Leather Blend are definitely going to get some wear. So that came out in 2016. There's also this sandalwood Peru balsam base of this that always keeps my attention. Like I said, there's some ambers that you'll get bored of. Not here. This is a very good designer scent. Olivier Pescheux is a good perfumer. Even though he did 1 million, I'll give him a pass for that. He's a good perfumer. But he also did another mass-marketed sweet scent. He does these sweet fragrances sometimes. But again, I'll give him a pass for it because I think he does it about as well as you can do it and keep modern noses interested that want that, sweetness. So he did this. This is Eros Flame by Versace in 2018. And again, I'll do an early impression on this one day soon. Eros Flame is, another sweet, spicy, masculine scent. It was a flanker of the highly successful Eros, which I absolutely despise. That green, apple, mint, ambroxan, vanilla thing that they do. I can't stand it. I think it's probably one of the most childish, famous, fragrances from the designer house that men wear. If I ever smell a man wearing Eros, it's always like, it's almost like, child's play stuff. Like, it's time to grow up, dude. I think of bros at the club wearing Eros. But Eros Flame is a little bit more grown up. It's still kind of childish, but it's more grown up. If you forced me to wear one, I would wear Eros Flame. And it also has that pepperwood note that you find in Herod. This is... what did I say? Herod came out in 2012. So 6 years later, he's using pepperwood again with this patchouli tonka vanilla kind of base. But here, there's this pepperiness and there's this very strange Chinoto note. And Chinoto is almost like this special type of bitter orange. So here, you've got a strange type of orange. What did they call it? Madagascar blood orange or whatever made-up name they came up with. Here you've got Chinoto in Eros Flame, which is like this special type of bitter orange. And it does make it a little unique. Would I ever buy a bottle? Hell no. This is completely out of my realm right now with where I'm at with my collection. But I'll do a video on it and go more in depth to it. I don't know how well this sold, and rumor is that this might be discontinued, but I mean, there's no reason to go run out and buy Versace Eros Flame or anything. And then, the final two are both from Diptyque. So in 2011, he came out with 34 Boulevard Saint Germain, which was the name of the headquarters of Diptyque. That's the address of the headquarters. And they came out with it in a eau de toilette form, okay? And it was all about this rose, cinnamon, patchouli, amber, very unisex fragrance. In 2018, they came out with this. And this is 34 Boulevard Saint Germain in Eau de Parfum. And I love this presentation by Diptyque. I wish they did more like this. Magnetic cap. All right. And you can see they've got the writing on the inside. They've got all your doodads right there on the top of the bottle. I love the presentation. I think it's clean. In the EDT, the atomizer was meant to look like a wick of a candle, because Diptyque is known for their candles. And, you know, if you want kind of this modern fragrance, but you don't want to wear something like a Ventus, Rich Mitch mentioned that this is an amazing fragrance to try and sample, because it has this, you know, when you wear a Ventus, you get a lot of like unsolicited attention. That's why people used to like a Ventus, because it drew people. They like the way it smelled. They like the compliments. If you're into that, which I'm not, but if you are, sample this. Okay, sample 34 Boulevard Saint Germain if you want to smell something different. This does have this sandalwood. All right, I'm going to use that term loosely. This sandalwood accord, and it's got this vanilla and this pepperiness to it. And you know, it's probably there's probably more to it than that. There's probably some sort of flowery. You know, one person said iris, one person says violet leaf, but there's definitely a little bit more going on. But it is very modern. You know, if you take like a vintage Chypre from 100 years ago and you say that's the old mansion that was created forever ago, Aventus is the modern you know, mansion, glass house with modern architecture. This falls into that modern camp, if you will. It is, the only thing is again, it's a little sweet. So Olivier Pescheux likes that, to use that sweetness for whatever reason. You know, it's got that spicy, sweet vanilla thing going, which he used over and over and over again. But he does it well for what it is, but you have to like that DNA, which I normally don't, but I do like Olivier Pescheux as a perfumer. Now, the final one, I think I like even more than 34 Boulevard Saint Germain, which is a good scent. It's not my favorite Diptyque, though. And again, this is probably not my favorite Diptyque, but I'm really taken with this. I think this is another one that people don't talk about. At least not anymore. And if they did, they talked about it for a year or two, and now they've already moved on to something else. It only came out in 2018, and it's called Tempo by the house of Diptyque. And Tempo is an eau de parfum. I think they only released it in eau de parfum. But it focuses on the note of Indonesian patchouli, which most patchouli comes from Indonesia, so there's nothing special about that. But Indonesian patchouli is the star of the show. So you get this earthy, dark patchouli, you know, like you're used to a good, dark, damp, green patchouli smelling, right? But what he's done is he's mixed it with violet leaf, which there could be even a little violet leaf in this. But there's definitely this violet leaf accord, which gives off that, you know, Fahrenheit gasoline vibe. But it's not super pushed like on Fahrenheit. Don't expect Fahrenheit out of this, but just expect that gasoline violet leaf note to give a little bit of fuel to the patchouli, if you will. And then what he did is, I think, something brilliant, is he mixed it with clary sage, which gives that dry, you know, imagine you pick up a piece of, you you know, a dry piece of grass or a dry leaf and crumple it up and it just kind of falls into a million pieces, but it's really, really dry, almost like this sweaty vibe. That's what clary sage gives to a composition. So you get this clary sage, and then you get this mate absolute. So mate tea is a very popular South American tea, and tea usually adds this very calming vibe. But here, because it's mate tea, it adds this mysterious vibe, you know, this distinct vibe. There's a level of distinction about this. So if you love fragrances like Givenchy Gentleman from 1974, now, that's one of my favorite fragrances of all time, so don't get it twisted and think I'm comparing the two head for head. No, Givenchy Gentleman's in my top 10. But I'm saying if you like that kind of old school patchouli, definitely try Tempo, because this is modernized. This is for someone who secretly loves Givenchy Gentleman, but maybe they don't have the balls to wear it or the intestinal fortitude to wear Givenchy Gentleman, and they want to wear something niche and maybe a little bit more palatable. You can wear this. Now, for me, I'll just rock Givenchy Gentleman and say, screw it. You don't like it, that's your fault. But if you want something that is a niche patchouli that you can wear in more situations, this is heavily underappreciated in FragCom. I don't hear anyone talking about this as far as favorite patchouli goes. Look at the snake going up the mountain, spewing the volcanic ash into the air. The patchouli in the foreground. Yes, I'm a big fan, and it's got this very 1960s design. There's some like psychedelic mushrooms and elephants and all kind of stuff, artwork done. Very 1960s, asked to highlight that patchouli. And so, Olivier Pescheux, bravo. Thank you for your work. I'm a huge fan. And I'm glad I was able to do this video. Again, I've just been absolutely swamped with work. So I hope you guys appreciate the fact that, you know, I'm still trying my best to put these videos out for you. The really long ones, like this is not a top 10 where we're going over an hour and I've got a million bottles. It's really hard for me to do. These that are a little bit more compact are a little easier to do after work. I'll save this is not a top 10 for, you know, once I pass this test, hopefully very soon. So, thanks again for watching, everyone. I always say you don't have to comment or like or subscribe or anything like that, but if you decide to, it is very much appreciated. You're always welcome into our little community, into our little tribe. I love having like-minded people who love fragrance as much as we do, and the comments are a fantastic section for knowledge. You know, some of the commenters know more than I do about fragrance, and so leave a comment if you're familiar with some of these, if you're familiar with Olivier Pescheux's work. And hopefully I'll be able to make another video tomorrow. I do have to go to the office, so again, it could be late, but I appreciate everyone's patience and understanding, and I look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Bye now.